Hello, and welcome back to the Jorch 99.9. Thanks for joining us here. We've got our first episode of our new podcast here with my co-host, Robert.
Hello, I know about Prog.
He sure does. He puts me to shame, folks, but I'm going to try to do my best to keep up here. This is going to be episode 1 of the Progcast. And what we're going to be, it was sort of a goal for us with this sort of series, because we are both massive fans of prog, or progressive rock, as it's known. Now, this a lot of times is regarded as a very highbrow, academic, spoken of in very technical terms, quote-unquote intellectual music.
Which misses out on a lot of the actual spirit of the music itself and what I think we both get out of it. I think it would be nice for people to understand that prog is as fun as we think it is.
Absolutely. We want to demystify things a little bit. We want to bring it down from whatever perceived upper echelons it gets talked about in. Because whether it's people praising it in a highbrow sort of way or people dunking on it for being perceived as highbrow, that's not how we see it, and that's not how we listen to this music. We love prog because it's exciting, it's fun, and it's a very, for both of us in our musical journeys, has been a very important, very inspiring kind of music to get into, and you know, a lot of our favorite bands and favorite albums of all time lie within this genre.
Yeah, and you know, I think personally speaking too, I think this genre, because of its eclecticism, really lends itself to getting into other genres, and a lot of these other genres are maybe not as dunked on as much as prog, but they share a lot of common DNA, I think. And I think people should definitely take the curtain down on prog and see it for what it really is, which is a hell of a lot of fun and a great adventure every time, guaranteed.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally a journey. And I think that's true what you say, because like I don't think krautrock. I think krautrock is like kind of cool to most people. Like anybody can kind of get into Can without any sort of reprehension. But like I don't know, you can't really go around talking about how much you love Gentle Giant without people thinking you're a fucking nerd.
Yeah, well, you know, they see that stupid giant face and, you know, they get a little upset about it. But, you know, and krautrock too, you know, a lot of people who are into krautrock but not prog refuse to put them in the same universe. And, you know, the two just go hand in hand together for me, because even if krautrock is a little bit cooler in terms of what, you know, music listeners kind of look for, and groove and funky elements and the rhythm, and it's not as flashy typically as a lot of other prog genres, it's still expanded rock in very similar directions. So we will talk about krautrock, of course, but I think Can is pretty cool, but what about Kansas?
The sequel to Can. You got Amandul and Amandul 2, and you got Can and Kansas.
Yeah, you got the classic krautrock bands. All of them. From Germany, from fucking Kansas State. The only two places they come from.
So yeah, you know, we just want to express a lot of the love that we have for this stuff and kind of just talk about it in a more regular, down-to-earth way you'd have any kind of a music conversation, because, you know, we both feel that, like, there's a capacity for younger folks of my generation and some folks of yours. We're a couple of younger dudes, that there's a real potential for a lot of enjoyment to be found from some of these bands. Like, I was recently hanging out with a buddy who's 21, and I got the remote for YouTube, which is a big mistake. Never give me the odds, because I'm going to put on some shit like Eschaton 4 Visions, or I was playing Griffin a little bit.
Just don't play the live video.
They weren't vibing with the Griffin as hard, but like Eschaton, and then I put on some Magma, Udu Wudu.
Nice.
And like the younger guys hanging out with me were like, oh, this is lit. Like, this is really cool. Like, I feel like if you were to hand people some prog records without the stigma that can come along with it, like, you just hear it for what it is, which is just like really cool music.
Exactly. And like, sometimes different genres have, you know, you get a similar feeling out of certain records that you would never expect two records to be similar in certain ways. It can be in completely different genres. But what I would like, is like, let's take Close to the Edge, for example. I mean, that is a record that takes you to the heavens, basically. And, my favorite record, a year before that, What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, also brings me to the heavens. And I think prog just gets too pigeonholed that it can't do something spiritual or emotional, and it definitely can. And yeah, people need to know there's some of the heaviest shit out there in this genre, and there's some of the most tender shit in this genre, and probably more degrees between those two than any other genre. And we're gonna talk a lot about these different bands, but you're gonna find out pretty quickly how goofy a lot of these motherfuckers are. That's for sure. Even if they were very serious about composition and playing, yeah, there is a lot of color in this form of creativity, and I think people need to see that a little bit more. And for all it's worth, everything is countercultural. So if you love punk, prog helped get you there.
Yeah, I mean the push of punk against prog, that was the same push that prog made against more traditional rock and roll of the 50s and 60s.
Exactly, and both genres have their small group of bands that made it to the mainstream, but most listeners don't go beyond maybe 5 or 6 records, and that way they both share some DNA.
Oh, absolutely. And there's even punk bands that still love prog, even if they have to say that they hate it on record.
Yeah, they hated on it for a minute, and then they quit hating on it,
Yeah, Johnny Rotten, he might have had the fuck Pink Floyd shirt, but he loved Vandergraaf Generator. And if you know anything, Vandergraaf is a way more uncool band to like than Pink Floyd.
For most people, of course.
For most people. What a cold take that is, saying fuck Pink Floyd. It's like, fuck Led Zeppelin. It's like, whatever, dude.
The Beatles, overrated.
Yeah, the Beatles are overrated. And it's like, whoa, dude, you're blazing a new trail with this take.
Yeah, like, come on. It's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Throughout this series, we're going to be kind of breaking it down into sections. That's going to form kind of as we go along. But for these first couple of episodes, we're going to be touching on the early years, the Proto-Prog. Everything that was leading up to what is considered the Big Bang of when prog became capital P prog. And that album is the King Crimson debut album.
Yes, which is pretty much at the tail end of the decade. And it pretty much single-handedly blows the door open for the next 5 years, which good luck finding another genre that has as much packed into 5 years as prog. I mean, it is unbelievable. The countries you can dig into, the third tier bands, if you're into the genre, are they sound like first tier bands, It just, the rabbit hole goes so deep, and it goes all around the world. And it's just super interesting. And because the genre has so much room for experimentation, it's interesting to see how these countries took their culture of musicality and turned it into prog. I think that's one of the better things about this genre, is that you can pick a country on a map, find a bunch of prog bands, and none of them sound like Yes. They sound distinctively their own. And I think that's pretty awesome. Except for America. They loved copying Yes.
Yeah. We're looking at you, Star Castle.
Star fucking Castle. Classic $5 record.
That's what I'm going to wear. A Sharpie on a white t-shirt that says fuck Star Castle. And everyone's going to be like, what?
Who is fucking Star Castle?
What's a Star Castle? So yeah, in these first couple episodes, we're going to be talking about the beginnings, everything pre-November 1969 when that glorious King Crimson debut dropped. But you'll find that even in the early years, there's a lot of gold to be found here. There's a lot of very classic records, and definitely if you're someone who's unfamiliar with the genre, there's going to be names in here that you recognize and didn't even realize what a influential force they were in the creation of prog.
Exactly. Some names that are as cool and timeless as they come did, in fact, contribute to a genre you might hate. And maybe you will learn to like it.
But that's all we can hope for.
Yeah.
So if you don't care about the music at all, at least hopefully some people find our babbling entertaining.
Yeah, at least you can say, I hope you can say that maybe prog nerds are a little bit cooler when they're not talking about Dream Theater and pushing their glasses up.
Oh, shoot. Okay. So, just as kind of a general background, so what you'll see in any introductory Wikipedia article about the genre is that, progressive rock became this movement in the mid to late 60s that was basically just trying to push the limits of what rock and roll could be. Pushing it past 2 to 3 minute pop songs and your run-of-the-mill folk rock and turning it into something that carried, just a lot more elements, a lot more intrigue, more...
less blues, more jazz and classical.
Yeah, a lot of jazz and classical influence goes hand in hand with a lot of these bands. Some lean more jazz, some lean more classical. Some sound like neither, and some sound like both.
Some still sound like blues bands that just really know how to play.
Yeah, but in a certain way, progressive rock follows a similar path like classical and jazz because, at one point, the orchestra had to start as like a little minstrel group of like 5 people and eventually becomes this huge orchestral piece that goes for like an hour. And, your classic swing jazz and your bebop artists that eventually gives way to hard bop and free jazz and avant-garde jazz.
Yeah, and even the classical elements. I mean, you have third stream jazz. It's crazy. You get from big band swing to Duke Ellington doing crazy shit, and then the Charles Mingus doing crazy shit, and now experimental big band is still a pretty active genre in the underground, and so even jazz and classical have some common DNA, despite the fact that they are almost polar opposites, But that's what a genre can do, It's there's nothing that says you can't have some classical in your jazz, and then you get Black Saint and the Sinner Lady.
Thank God for that.
Thank Christ for that. Thank whoever for that. Thank Charles Mingus's rifle.
Thank that fucking pipe he's smoking on the cover for that.
Oh my God, that pipe, man. That's hard as fuck.
That's one of the hardest album covers of all time.
I will tell everybody right now, there's not going to be a prog album cover quite as hard as that.
No, unfortunately. Roger Dean wishes he was as cool as Charles Mingus. But don't we all?
Yeah. I wish I shot my gun off in my house.
With your kids running around?
Yeah, my kids running around.
Smoking a... I'll throw up the clip of that for context while we're talking about it.
I think he toilet trained his cat, too.
How about just for the visual element of this whole podcast, it's just that Griffin live performance.
Oh, no.
And nobody watches. We get negative views.
There's a band called Griffin. Do not watch their live performance until you're done listening to everything we have to say, or you're going to regress into hating the genre again.
Yeah, please. A lot of this music does the talking for itself, but some may be a bit of a harder sell.
Yeah. And I love Griffin, but holy shit, man.
I've never seen guys performing live that looked like they were having less fun.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't cool until I saw that Griffin video, and now I'm starting to think maybe I am.
Oh, man.
Let's start with the Big Bang album. The one Robert Fripp even said that inspired him to take music. And what was he going to be, a banker or some shit?
I don't remember. Something very run-of-the-mill.
He looks like a banker.
Yeah, he definitely... he's got accountant written all over him. When you got a guitarist who prefers to sit down on stage, that man was meant for the banking industry.
Well, everyone does like to say prog is like the math of music, basically.
Ugh.
Ugh.
And one last thing before we start to get into the albums. This Proto-Prog series, we're going to be touching on a lot of like the big names and some medium-sized names. Throughout this whole series, we're trying to focus on talking about the music first and foremost. So we're not going to be getting too deep into the weeds of like backstories and band formations and things like that. Maybe where it seems appropriate, but really the centerpiece is always going to be the music because that's what you come back to listen to.
Exactly. And, we're self-aware enough to know that you could just go read a short history of a band in no time. We'd rather give you something that's a little bit more personal on our end. That way, it has a little bit of substance to it. Why does this music mean something?
Yeah.
Why does it mean something to us? Not why does it have weird time signatures, or why, their soloing is so technical,
Yeah.
like it's
like so much music discussion online, at least on like the YouTube space, boils down to like 80% of the video is just a recitation of the Wikipedia page.
exactly.
And like if you want that basic info, if you want those histories, it's easy to find. It's all out there. But, talking about one's personal experience and personal love for the music, we both find to be like always a more interesting thing to hear.
Yeah, and it's more motivating to get to listen to the record, because at the end of the day, if you tell me this record sounds like this, well, it's lush, it's technical, it's has uncommon time signatures. The last time I'm gonna say that the whole fucking series.
God.
That's just so boring. It gives you an idea of how the album sounds, but I'd rather hear about how an album moves somebody. Why, I want to have that experience that somebody else had with any record, basically. The goal is to love as many records as possible, after all.
Yeah. How an album comes into someone's life, how they grow with a record, their emotional attachment to it, the nostalgia you feel, but also what kind of nostalgia, and where does it place itself in your personal history. Because like for any music nerd, you understand that like if you were to have a book of your life, like, and many of those chapters could be defined by specific records and specific bands.
Exactly. It's it's a corny. This one's corny and cliche, but I think it's true. The soundtrack to your life, you get to make it, and I think it just enhances your life a whole lot when you've got records that fit into a certain mindset.
Absolutely. All right. So with all that preamble out of the way, let's get into talking about some bands and some albums. And let's start it off. I know we said we're talking big names here, but we're going to start it off with a bit of an underground act. Not a lot of folks have heard this band. What are they called? The Weevils?
They're called, their name is a really stupid pun, but for whatever reason, people take them seriously.
Dude, I didn't know their name was I didn't realize it was a pun for the fucking longest time.
Well, it took me probably 10 years to figure out porcupine tree.
Wait, what?
Like a pine tree. Porcupine tree.
Oh, fuck.
So that name sucks too now. I liked it when it was abstract.
You get negative score when we realize it's a pun.
I love Steven Wilson, but he gets a negative score on that one.
But the Beatles. The Beatles is the name we mean to mention. So much can be said about the Beatles. At the end of the day, no matter how you feel, they're a very important band to a lot of music and a lot of bands. They changed a lot of shit. But at the end of the day, they just made great music that's enjoyable for a ton of people, us ourselves included. The album that we're picking out to choose to describe in the formation of progressive rock is going to be Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yeah, I know it's an obscure pick and everything, but
yeah, that's an underground Beatles pick for sure.
But it is, it blew the floodgates open for many, many artists to take greater risk. And it gave commercial rock more creative viability beyond your 2 to 3 minute pop songs. And obviously, everybody stood up and took notice. I wasn't there, but I've seen videos of people reacting to the Beatles from back in the day, and it's kind of scary. It's like a cult.
Yeah, Beatlemania was very much a cult.
And Sgt. Pepper's is just such a hugely well-timed, well-placed, conceptual. They really used the studio as an instrument, which Pet Sounds did as well, but Sgt. Pepper's really brings the prog on that record with its structuring as a concept record, which there's not a whole lot of those from this era yet.
No, I mean, at this time in the late 60s, it's where you started to see the album become an art form of itself, because a lot of rock music and just pop music in general, it was more like a collection of singles when you bought a record. Artists weren't really focusing on how songs connected to one another, the flow of an album, or just the album itself standing as basically like the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. And the Beatles weren't the only group to do that, but they certainly were one of the first.
Yeah, and they were the ones with the greatest visibility in all of popular music. I mean, every country. I mean, you could look at what they did in Brazil, for instance. I mean, everyone stood up and took notice with this band. Obviously, it was impossible not to. But what it did for Prague, I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious what it did, and you wouldn't have King Crimson without Sgt. Pepper's.
No, genuinely, because Robert Fripp was, like you said, going to go into some regular-ass 9-to-5 kind of job, and he was so inspired hearing Sgt. Pepper, such a revelation at the time, that it inspired him to be a musician. I mean, it's tough to think of Robert Fripp picking up his guitar for the first time and learning how to play, but Sgt. Pepper was that push for him into that world. And, you know, if only for King Crimson, we have to thank the Beatles for that.
Yeah, sometimes it's too hard to break your own chains, and you need someone else to do it first.
Oh, yeah.
And the Beatles had all the resources to do it. They were already so popular from the get-go, they could have fucking made an album that sounded like Merzbow, and it still would have went platinum.
Or,
you know,
they just as easily could have kept making albums in the vein of their earlier stuff, which is just regular rock and roll, but they chose to become a studio band and to harness their craft to change what we perceive as like rock music, and that it would stick going forward. We never really saw it go back to that early 60s style of the rock album. Changed everything. But just to speak on like the music a little bit, of the album, it being sort of a concept album was extremely new at the time, and still what makes it so unique, even if you're not trying to tie together lyrical themes and meanings, just the way it's presented, like with the intro and the outro of it being like a stage performance, and they're taking on these personas of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and they're playing all this music for you. So it almost feels like a vaudeville show in an album. And like, while the songs themselves are like, they're so unique from one another. Like every song sounds like it's own little color, its own different style.
Yeah, it's very kaleidoscopic in that way.
Extremely kaleidoscopic, but it kind of gets tied together really well because you're imagining that it's this wacky kind of vaudeville band performing with this bigger band behind them, and you know, it's why there's all these different instruments, all the strings and the sitar and everything that would just make it so fresh.
The Indian mysticism that George Harrison was really getting into.
They were big on that.
You know, everything sort of really starts to hit for the Beatles in terms of what they stood for historically. On a musical level with Sgt. Pepper's. You know, as popular as they were before that, if they don't get to that point, you know, they're an important footnote in 60s rock. But this record is what makes, you know, this might be the most important rock record we're talking about. It's hard to go wrong with the influences in that record that it's had. And this is a discography that has multiple highly influential records. I mean, we picked one because that's what we're doing. But it also, you know, I'm sure we'll bring up the White Album at some point because that's a weird fucking record too. But Sgt. Pepper's is just like the Sabbath debut in metal. It just feels like something is fucking here.
Yeah.
And it's here to stay.
It's the beginning of something.
It's hard to pinpoint beginnings of things a lot of times, but in this case, I think we can.
Yeah. And to speak of it in, I guess, a little bit less abstract terms of just like, I personally love Sgt. Pepper. It's my second favorite Beatles album to Abbey Road, which are obviously the two most basic picks you can have. But I was definitely one of the Beatles snobs for the longest. I was like someone who would openly say they're overrated and felt proud of it.
Yeah, you know, because when you're passionate about music, you're prone to nonconformity. And then you get older and you start to not care.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're getting into music, and especially when you pride yourself on a lot of like lesser known artists and underground shit, when you're facing a band that's had so much praise heaped onto them over the years, like the Beatles have, you kind of immediately want to, you kind of are standoffish at it going into it. But Sgt. Pepper was the first one of their albums that like really broke through and like spoke to me, not because of like any of the production or the technicality or the diversity. It's just such a fun record. I feel like it's an element that maybe is the least talked about when it comes to like some of the best Beatles stuff. But I love their music, and what makes it so unique to me is it's so much fun to listen to.
It's colorful. It's a blast.
Yeah.
That album, Sgt. Pepper's especially a blast. And, I mean, hell, they had so much fun. They packed a song most people would have probably made 20 minutes into quite a short song at the end of the album, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what the hell? Forget about the concept record. They did a concept song.
Yeah.
With multiple movements, and that is a big fucking part of prog. That is for damn sure. And they did it in such a short little time frame. Just taking a day in the life into consideration. It's like a pocket prog song.
Yeah, absolutely. You could write a whole thesis on like how important and revolutionary a day in the life is, but like at the same time, I love it just because like the Paul McCartney bit is just, you can't not smile when he's like, woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head. But then it hits you at the same time when he's like, went upstairs and had a smoke, and suddenly it fell into a dream. And then it goes into that vocal section that's like building and building, and you're lifted into the clouds, and you feel like you're like facing God in that moment or something. And it's just like, it's fun and it's down to earth, but it's heavenly and spiritual at the same time.
Yes, and it grounds a person to hear that song sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. It's talked as one of the greatest songs of all time for a good reason. Yeah. So yeah, that little unknown band, that little underground act, give them a try. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't. But we start with them because it feels appropriate, but also they kind of fall into the revolution of what would become the concept album, or like a rock opera, if you will. So another touchstone album in the creation of the concept album is 1968's Tommy by The Who. Tommy it's a very important record, and it's an extremely influential record. I'd say full stop the first rock opera, because it really does sound like some kind of a musical playing out throughout an album, especially Ambitious being a double album for the time.
And it's ambitious, and it's not technically the first rock opera, but it definitely has all the bombast of a rock opera that we come to expect.
Yes.
For better or for worse.
Roger Daltrey is definitely getting a lot of mileage out of his falsetto on this record.
Pete Townsend is definitely projecting on this record.
Oh, wow, yeah. With fiddling around. What's that song called? I have it written.
Fiddle My Diddle?
Fiddle My Diddle. My Diddle. It's called Fiddle About. Let's start with the positives. Let's start with what we like to praise about this record. Now, the standout track for me is Pinball Wizard. It's a fucking classic. It was on one of the Rock Band games, and I have a lot of nostalgia attached to it. It's just a fun song. Like, about a deaf, dumb, and blind kid who's fucking great at pinball. I mean, it's goofy. It's a great little tune. I'm Free is a great track. I love that one a lot. It's very it's a very heady kind of song, you know. It's way more like psychedelic and kind of cerebral compared to everything else on the record. What are some highlights on there for you?
I don't really like this record.
I don't really like this record either.
It's all right. There's no major highlights for me, to be honest with you. Most of the highlights are songs that I've heard way too many times. But what I would like to talk about with Tommy especially is that they were one of the early bands that really learned how to utilize the Moog. Pete Townsend, one of our best friends, is a big synth guy. You know, he has a big history lesson about Pete Townsend and his contribution to this. And for a keyboard-heavy genre such as prog, you know, you have to have the symphonic elements in a lot of these bands, and you use keyboards to get there most of the time. You can't not talk about Pete Townsend, at least from a technological standpoint, and helping to bring the Moog into the mainstream. So for me, Tommy, less conceptually, maybe more sonically, I appreciate it in that way, but other than that, I don't think it's a record. It's way too unbalanced of a record. And as ambitious as it is, it gets The Who from their early, more single-oriented days to their more album-oriented days, and it's very important for that. But they would in the 70s, hit a home run for their prog DNA with Quadrophenia, which is a much better composed record, and it really sounds more like a rock opera and less of a fucking show tunes show.
Yeah, man.
Because it's a rock opera. I don't want it to sound like show tunes. I don't want it to sound like fucking Meatloaf. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I have the self-awareness that we're just two dudes talking about it, and just for the fact of how many bands were influenced by Tommy and how important it is in the canon of rock, to us to sit here and like, yeah, this album kind of sucks, bro. But just to our ears, the thing is, we're going to keep it real with y'all. If something is too highbrow or it does come off snobby, we're not going to try and give the hard sell. If it sucks, we'll be honest. And it's not a total flop. It's not the worst thing ever. But like, my biggest criticism of Tommy is like, for a rock opera, it's really lacking the rock. Like, it's just, I don't know.
And this is a band that was the most rockin' band of all time for a snapshot in history.
Oh my god!
So I mean, people were killed at their shows.
Oh yeah,
they got trampled. Yeah.
In Toledo, wasn't it? It was in Ohio.
Pete Townshend's like the original Travis Scott.
Oh man! I hope Travis Scott doesn't have other things in common with Pete Townsend.
Please, Travis, no. You sampled Gentle Giant. Leave it there.
Don't go farther down the rabbit hole, Travis. No. But just I guess a few other things to say is like, you could really cut this record down. It does not need to be an hour 15 minutes long, man. You maybe there's a much tighter, much cooler 40-minute album in here. Like, why do we need the song about Tommy's uncle diddling him, and the song's called Fiddle About? I genuinely feel bad for Roger Daltrey that his voice is attached to those lyrics for the rest of time.
Yeah, but they're old and curmudgeonly and have a lot of bad takes now, so.
Who?
Yeah.
Are they?
Oh, yeah, they're... Roger Daltrey, he's a curmudgeon. Pete Townsend, he's he's on a list somewhere. We'll leave it at that.
Hey, he was doing it for research, man. It was research for a book, okay?
Oh, yeah.
It was just research, bro.
Yeah,
I swear.
That book... I don't know what the fuck that book is, but it's wrong.
No good.
It's
Bad,
no
Pete.
good.
Bad. Stick to beating on guitars on stage, not little boys' cheeks.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's probably the most negative we're going to get about any of these records, because we genuinely love most of the music.
Yeah, and, most of these prog bands aren't that big, so if their members did anything terrible, we don't know about it.
Yeah, we don't know. It's better to be a secret pedo than a public pedo.
When they separate the art and the artist for me, it makes it a much easier distinction to make.
Absolutely. Listen, we both love Zeppelin and Bowie, but we don't care to dig into their romantic endeavors of the time.
Yeah, Jimmy Page, oh, I don't know, buddy.
Come on, buddy. A little too young, bud.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page said, if there's grass on the field, play ball. All right. To kind of round out our touching on the birth of the concept album, a little bit of a lesser known by... You want to introduce this album?
Yeah, I'll introduce it. This is the first rock opera. It is by the Pretty Things, and it's called SF Sorrow. It is substantially more psychedelic than it would be prog at all, but conceptually speaking, and as early as it is, it's a very also kaleidoscopic record, even though it goes into some dark territory, which is very common for progressive rock. We'll get to the King Crimson debut, but if you've heard the first and second tracks on that album, the genre has a lot of different things to offer. And I think SF Sorrow does a nice job in presenting that. A lot more than Tommy, I think. I think Tommy is the technological one-up as far as prog influence, and I'm sure The Who is a more influential band based on their status. But SF Sorrow is one of those records that when I was getting into music, it seemed to be on a lot of lists, and it's kind of fallen off in recent years. Seems to be more of a hidden gem than it used to be. But I think people need to know about this record and its place in rock history, conceptual rock history, which is really where prog starts to show its teeth as a real thing. You got to talk about this record. It's classic.
It's an unknown essential, I feel like, because I didn't know about this record until we started planning out this podcast and listening to it for the first time today. Actually, I just love how it's very bright. It's a great like sunny day album. I was walking my dog and it was a really nice day today, and I was listening to this, and it was just like it puts you in a great mood. It has a really nice. A great consistent tone across the whole record of being very not as bubbly as the Beatles, but very bright and very optimistic, positive kind of sound.
It's definitely on the brighter side of psychedelia than it would be on the darker side.
Yeah, it's closer to like a Love than it is like a Beatles.
Yeah, but much like Love, there are some lyrical themes that maybe aren't as happy. But, they don't go total doom and gloom, which is nice.
Yeah, there's a track on here called Death that's surprisingly uplifting.
I mean, I've been waiting. Fuck.
Dude, when I kept looking at the track list as I was listening through it, there's a song called The Journey, and I was like, the journey begins.
The journey begins. Sick. We'll get there. If you know what that is, we'll get there eventually.
As the cool kids say, if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, fella.
So yeah, if you're into concept records, if you're that kind of lonely, miserable nerd,
yeah,
then you're really gonna like Freddie Thing's SF Sorrow.
And it may even get you to leave the house, which is really something when you're a lonely, miserable nerd is tough to come by.
And we're speaking from the perspective of two lonely, miserable
nerds.
Yes,
this is not a slight on anybody.
Yeah, no.
It's a slight on ourselves. That's it.
We just by happenstance found kinship because we worked together, and he was the first person I met in real life that knew the word prog, and I was like, you like prog? Because you asked me what my favorite band was, and I said Rush, and you're like, yo, so you like prog? And I'm like, prog? You like?
I was very happy that you knew what prog was, because Rush is so popular that a lot of their fans probably don't even know what the hell prog is.
Yeah.
And it was nice. I hired a friend of mine one time, and his buddy told him in the interview to make sure he brought up King Crimson, because that would be an instant hire.
That's insider info, though. That's not organic.
Yeah,
he cheated his way in.
He cheated. He got in. But if you listen to King Crimson, you're pretty much an automatic hire. If you listen to Sublime, you're pretty much an automatic pass.
We know you ain't passing a drug test, brother.
Not that we gave any, but... No, we wouldn't have anyone working there.
If you gave drug tests at a record and video game store, the place would be empty.
Yeah, well, you'd still have the nerdy gamers. I think they're too afraid to indulge.
Yeah, they think they're gonna smoke a joint and then a week later be doing heroin.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, I can't play this 3DS RPG with unclear mind.
I can't be nodding off and playing the 18th Fire Emblem game.
Yeah, I can't. I bought the original for the Super Famicom on the internet and learned Japanese. I mean, if that person exists, they're a lot more productive than me.
They probably have bigger social circles than prog fans do.
They learn Japanese to play a game, but never go to Japan.
I learned how to speak Japanese just by watching anime with the subtitles off.
And I never go. I've never been out of the house.
Oh, shit. Okay. So, moving on to the next portion here. We're going to be talking about sort of the more classical influenced acts of the time. People who would really prop up the orchestral qualities of prog that would be blasted into the stratosphere once you hit the 70s. Let's start with Procol Harum.
Procol Harum. Amazing, underrated band. And they're one of the few bands from this era that did actually just become a full-blown prog band. Their debut is the most important record that we're going to talk about, just simply because of when it hits and how it sounds sonically. But this is a band that has a classic prog run, too, which is important because they not only put out a good debut album, they became a pretty well-respected prog band.
Yeah, I mean, we were debating on putting the second Procol
Yeah, Shine On
here.
Brightly, Salty Dog are both great. They're conceptual, they're symphonic.
Yeah, the second half of Shine On Brightly is like one whole song,
Yeah.
like a suite. Like 2 years before the Beatles did it on the second half of Abbey Road.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
They're underrated. But the debut, for when it hits and how it uses the organ as a symphonic element for their music, it gives it this grandiosity. But like classical music, which most people consider to be very old, and it is, it's one of the first records that captures that symphonic medieval element, to where even though they were doing something new, somehow the record sounds as old as time. And with that, it kind of makes it timeless.
Yeah, and they didn't need to just like tape on a string section to give it like a classical sound. They did it organically with rock instrumentation.
Yeah.
You know, like that. It's probably a Hammond organ on there. I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they utilized the Hammond organ, which became synonymous with hard rock bands in the '70s, and they in a very like nuanced kind of way brought in those classical influences. But you're not going to listen to it as I did when I first heard this album years ago. I wasn't like, this is a very classical inspired album. It just kind of sets in the more time you spend with it, because it feels very organic. It feels natural to the album, where they're not like smacking you in the face with like, we love classical.
Yeah.
It's like, check out this organ. We're going to do some cool shit with this.
The next record is a lot like that.
Yeah. But they gave themselves permission. They earned that.
And Whiter Shade of Pale alone. We could have just talked about that song, to be honest. The album's great, and it's technically not on the album. It got put on subsequent reissues because the song was so popular.
Yeah.
But it is not. It is technically a standalone release. But that song especially, the obscurity of the lyrics, like we've already talked about, the Hammond just making it have this sort of old medieval symphonic grandiosity to it, despite it being a song that'll make you cry. It's one of those songs that I almost have a hard time coming to the core of why it affects me so deeply. It's just one of those timeless tunes. I mean, anybody that's into 60s singles, it doesn't matter what genre they're into, like, this is a classic song.
It is one of those songs that like touches you in like an emotional way that you can't fully put into words. It's very melancholic. It's called Whiter Shade of Pale, but if this song was a color, it'd be gray.
Yes.
It's a very gray, cloudy, rainy day.
It fits
sort of
with
song.
that first album cover.
It does super well, and it's also like a standout just for a time in rock, especially in the '60s when everything was very happy and bubbly and things like that. Like, to have a song that's so somber and so melancholic become such a massive hit, I think makes it like certainly one of the first of its kind.
Yeah, and it's also one of those songs that really nothing else sounds like. You know, when you talk singles, classic songs, just as a standalone sort of idea, Whiter Shade of Pale, you can look at any 60s list of singles, it's going to be on there. But it really just, even with the prog stuff we're going to talk about, because Whiter Shade of Pale is very, it's not super ambitious. It's not structured strangely.
It's not grandiose or anything.
The keys give it a symphonic element, but it's not bombastic. And I don't know, it stands alone. It's a triumph, that song. And it's one of those songs from a band that might get overlooked a lot, but they at least penned one song that if someone came up to me and said this is the greatest song of all time, it earns its keep. It's in the S tier of songs, for sure.
It's a good pick.
Yeah.
It's a damn good pick, especially in 60s songs.
And how about the soulful singing?
Dude, whew. He sounds so like weary and like tired, but like in such an engaging and like emotional way. Like
Gary Brooker. He sounded good until he died. Yeah.
Most people do.
No, their voice goes away.
Yeah, so did his.
Oh, well, what I meant is that his voice never really wore out over time. There's a great symphonic, full orchestra, and he's old, and they're playing. and they do Whiter Shade of Pale with this full orchestra, and he's singing it like he's singing it for the first time. And yeah, it made me cry. And especially just seeing a guy age with this song, you know, that basically made his life possible. And he's singing it with an orchestra, and he's old, and it's a song that sounds old. And it just hit me differently hearing it coming from an old man, not a young man.
And it's great because a lot of bands kind of grow to despise their biggest hits. But when a band still loves and embraces the song that gave them stardom, especially when it carries on decades and decades later, it really gives it like an extra layer of meaning and like emotion to it.
Yeah, it's a song that's so completely and totally of its time and out of its time simultaneously that I think you put it in any era, it's good. I mean, I saw Wise Blood do a cover of it live.
Oh shit!
When I saw her after Titanic Rising came out, and obviously she's an incredible singer. She's very tasteful in how she sings, and it was a perfect match for the song, and it was beautiful, and it just reiterated how timeless of a song this is. And if you're gonna cover it, don't change it much.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Doesn't need change.
Just feel the vocal, and sing it like you mean it, and it will always remain a great song. I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. Timeless classic.
Yeah.
But what's the name of the singer from Purple Harem?
Gary Brooker.
Yeah, Gary Brooker. He has a voice that aged like wine, much like Dave Mustaine. Hello, me, it's me again.
His voice was fucked from the get-go. He was lucky to be in a genre where most people didn't even fucking sing at all. Except the bands that got on the radio. Most of the thrash bands don't even sing.
No, they shout. They're
like, no vocal melody. You don't need vocal melody in thrash metal. Get the fuck out of here, Dave Mustaine. You cuckold.
So. Moving on from there, another touchstone with another huge hit that really is one of the quintessential songs of the 60s.
Of all time.
Of all time, truly. We're focusing on the Moody Blues.
Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past.
This is the big one, in my opinion.
I'd say, as far as like influential to prog, pre-King Crimson, this is a top 3 for sure.
Oh, big time. This is a band that actually used an orchestra. It's a concept record with a very clear concept. It is half the time just a classical record. The cover is made as a classical record. And I do know some history on this one, but it was supposed to be a covers album.
Really?
Yeah, the record company liked the idea with the orchestra, but it was going to be them, because until that point they were just the Magnificent Moodies. They were they were a pop group.
Great name change.
Yeah, well, I think they were still called the Moody Blues, but the album was called Magnificent Moodies. I don't know, it's not very good.
No.
But Days of Future Past is when the Moody Blues are in full bloom, and it's so fully formed as a concept record, and it feels much like Whiter Shade of Pale. It's got that simultaneous something new, something old, which is a huge component to prog. And they had Justin Hayward on vocals on Nights in White Satin, which is the song that is the most important Moody Blues song. That's their Whiter Shade of Pale.
I just like to take a moment to really fucking appreciate the album cover.
Oh, yeah.
For this record, because like, oh my god, just the color, the layering of the colors, the dark blues and blacks contrasted with the bright yellows and the reds. It's so beautiful, and like, I don't know, it fits the record really well.
It does, because it's got the brightness of all shades of the time of day. It's got the little clock.
Oh yeah, and the little moon showing the different moon phases.
So it's one of those covers which this, I'm glad you distracted me from talking about the Moody Blues, because prog covers are a huge component to prog. I mean, they put a lot of effort into cover art. And this one, I think, is interesting because they modeled it after a classical album. Everything from the font and how it's presented on the top of the record to using an abstract painting along with it is something that you see all the time on old classical records. And they went all out. I mean, This is a record that if you were around in 67, this is a radical fucking idea. This is a band that never gets its due because they ride along the pop edge of prog. But they were, at their best, incredible songwriters. Justin Hayward is one of the greatest prog singers. Along with Gary Brooker from Procol Harum, they both have a lot of soul. And there is that brooding melancholy. Even though there are many upbeat elements to this record, we're left with its final track as its most timeless piece, Nights in White Satin. And not to mention the narration at the end. Like, I mean, come on. Like, if this... Sgt. Pepper's is 67, Procol Harum debut, but like I said, this album to me is a prog album.
Yeah, it's just incredible how fully formed their idea for what this album, they wanted it to sound like. I mean, it's just insane for all of these albums, relatively speaking, are insane for the time that they came out, but Days of Future Past really sticks out in that way because, like, they just sound like seasoned vets going into this fucking album. Like, they're just decades seasoned composers.
Yeah, and I know, the record company was a big part of this, and the collaborators, the full idea seemed to get some pretty good support. And the Moody Blues would continue doing symphonic sounding records, but not on this level. They weren't using a full orchestra after this. I'll tell you what, though, they have a hell of a run of album covers, but Days of Future Past is major, and the Mellotron, I mean, come on. We get the Mellotron on this record. You cannot get to the Crimso debut without the Mellotron. To me, this record has the clearest line with the least amount of bumps in the road to get from point A to point B. Yeah. Like, it's so easy to see King Crimson coming after this.
You can draw a straight line
exactly
from this record to the King Crimson debut. Fuck. Oh, yeah. There's another record we'll talk about in a minute where, like, when I heard the Mellotron in there, I was like, I did, like, the Leonardo, like, hey, like, pointing at the TV bit, because I was like, it's the Mellotron! I'm like, it's got the Mellotron! Yeah. So, this is a side note completely, but it kind of brought to mind talking about Procol Harum and the way they used keyboard in a rock setting but made it sound classically influenced. Now, this is a band that definitely leans more toward the influence of hard rock, but the early Deep Purple records from the 60s with John Lord on the Hammond organ, I mean, John Lord is one of the best keyboard players of all time, and while they were delivering a lot more straightforward rock sound, he brings a lot of complexity and a lot of classical training into those rock songs. Because,
and I'm surprised we sort of forgot to talk about them the other night.
Yeah, well, when you were talking about Procol Harum and the keyboards, I was like, John Lord on those first three Purple records.
Yeah, you get the Deep Purple of the big hard rock bands were the most prog influenced, and the keyboards are certainly part of that, but you get to Child in Time pretty quick, and that's basically a prog song.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. John Lord definitely, and you could also bring up Uriah Heep with the Hammond organ. I feel like I talk so much about Tommy and their, the Who's Moog and how it, technically speaking, made a lot of difference in prog because it brought that instrument to the forefront. I think you can say similar things to John Lord.
Yeah, I mean, after the first three Purple records, he got an orchestra and made a whole album.
He sure
did.
He
conducted an entire classical album. So, I mean, gotta give the man props for that.
John Lord in the year of our Lord.
In the year of our peace. John Lord. Is he dead?
Yeah, he's dead.
Oh, shame.
I think.
Oh. Well, if he's not dead, cool. If he's dead, rest in peace. All right, back to it. Let's do the Family album.
All right.
Dude. Dude, I love this record.
This record's lit. This is a prog album, too. This is a prog album.
68, I believe this record came out. This is another one that was fresh to me in listening for this episode. But I love this record immediately. Something that I think makes this one stand out in comparison to some of these other Proto-Prog records is, like, what they did great was massive diversity in instrumentation. I mean, in my notes when I was listening to this record, like, all I kept harping on was, like, in Hey Mr. Policeman, you have that almost like Hawaiian sounding slide guitar that's just so tasty and so beautiful. In the, I think it's called Old Songs, New Songs, the sax, the blend of like the guitar riff and the sax soloing on top of it is fucking gorgeous. And then the Leo pointing at the TV moment I was talking about on See-Through Windows, you got the Mellotron popping up on there. And it's like not till 3/4 through the album you hear the Mellotron for the first time. I'm like, oh my god, there it is!
That's some Gentle Giant shit. It's like, you know you're going to hear a different instrument soon enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's strings all over this record. There's sitar on
it's very folky in a lot of moments.
It is, but it like branches out into so many different flavors that it's just so fun. It's such a fun album, and it's all like shorter separate songs that never go above like the 4-minute mark, but the album has an excellent flow to it.
Yeah, it's like different rooms of a house, music in a doll's house. I don't know if that was what they went for, but they feel cohesive despite how much they jump around.
I read this last night when I was reading about this band, but apparently the Beatles were going to call the White Album In a Doll's House, or A Doll's House.
Oh.
But then when they saw this record came out, then they changed it to just the self-titled.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that would have been a huge change to history. That guy that has the museum of just different copies of the White Album would be shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Who's going to draw on any other record?
Exactly. So anyone who appreciates the minimalism of that Beatles record, you got to thank Family for that.
Family, you love to see it.
You love to see
Family changing the course of the Beatles. Who knew how influential they truly were?
Yeah, and I think they had like 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
That's pretty good for prog numbers.
For 60s prog, yeah, that's huge. That's weekend numbers for 60s prog.
That's a millisecond number for the weekend.
So I just feel like this is a lesser known one. If you haven't heard this, please give this record a listen, because this album has no barriers to entry at all. This is just such an enjoyable record, and all the diversity and all the different instruments, they're blended in such a natural way that like it never stops and has to become a classical album or stops to become a jazz song for this song. It's all one. It almost plays like one entire song that plays for like 35 minutes straight. It's so easy to get into. It's
a breezy
fun.
album.
It's a breezy album.
Like I listened to it last night, and I looked at the clock, and it was like 2 minutes away from being done, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, same. I was like, where am I at? And I was at the second to last track. I'm like, oh my god, this album flows fantastically. Great pacing.
And you've got Peter Gabriel with extreme vibrato on vocals.
Oh my god, yeah,
the vibrato.
His vibrato's insane.
It takes like half a second to get there. I mean, he gets there immediately on a syllable. It's like, ah! But it's got a lot of character. But I will say, if there's one element of this record that might turn you away, if you have a real distaste for a very pronounced vibrato in your voice, this guy might wear on you a bit. But other than that, this is a really fucking fun record to listen to.
Yeah, and
it's a blast.
Even to that with the vocals, he sounds like exactly like Peter Gabriel, and everyone loves Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, well, he's not quite as good, but he's missing a little bit of the rasp from Peter Gabriel. He replaced the rasp with vibrato. He replaced the gravel with whatever the opposite of gravel is.
Wind.
Yeah, wind. He's the wind version of Peter Gabriel.
Old windy Peter.
Phil Collins is the beige version of Peter Gabriel.
Ooh, sorry,
Love him,
Phil
though.
Collins.
Love him.
We know you're listening, Phil.
He doesn't really have anything else he can do right now. He's disabled.
He's disabled.
And gay.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
okay.
Cut that.
No, where our IT crowd fans at, huh?
Yeah,
come on.
Come at it.
British comedy fans, where you at?
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of crossover with this fucking genre.
So then the last one in this group we're talking about is the second Vanilla Fudge album, Renaissance.
I'm gonna let you take the reins on this one. You love this one.
I love this fucking record. So I came into this not through the prog window, but more from like the proto-metal window. Vanilla Fudge is one of those names like Blue Cheer and the Hendrix Experience that gets thrown around as being very influential to the early days of heavy metal. Cream, absolutely. And the first Vanilla Fudge album, while still, a classic, it's basically a covers album.
It is a covers album.
I believe it's almost entirely covers, which is fine. I mean, that cover of You Keep Me Hanging On is iconic.
And that album is important too, but that album is very important to heavy metal. Renaissance is the more prog album.
Yeah, Renaissance is all accepting for one cover, entirely original material, and getting to this album was like, okay, the debute's great, but it's all covers. They got a great sound and they can perform well, but do they have more than that to really bring to the table? And Renaissance absolutely proves that they did. This album opens on an 8-minute track, and it's so sprawling. It's so it feels very grand and kind of has a classical element in that way, but there's no like orchestras across this album or anything like that. They still hold that pocket of early heavy metal sound with like great distortion on the guitars, very, very heavy percussive playing, but they prove themselves to be amazing songwriters. What, did I get too Fantana with that description?
No, I just thought of something really funny.
What?
I thought, I never really gave much thought to the name Vanilla Fudge. It's like white fudge, and I thought it would be funny if somebody called me Fudgy Vanilla one day.
That's your rapper name.
Yeah, Fudgy Vanilla, what's good?
But yeah, this album is like equal parts super early heavy metal, but super early prog as well. It's so whimsical. It's a very, very whimsical album that feels like it could have been performed in a court for a royal family in the 1500s, and it wouldn't have been out of place except for the nasty distortion on those guitars. And then speaking on the one cover that they have on this album, they cover Donovan's Season of the Witch in like an 8-minute long rendition. It reminds me of the way the Isley Brothers covered Papa Was a Rolling Stone, turning like a 3-minute song into this 11-minute slower build, sprawling kind of epic.
Yeah, or Walk On By.
Yeah, oh my
God. Or
God.
By the Time I Get to Phoenix.
Jesus, dude.
Turning Glenn Campbell into something unfucking believable. He
turns a Glenn Campbell song into like a Southern Gothic novel. Yeah. Isaac Hayes. We're talking about Isaac Hayes.
He's very prog, honestly, for a soul guy.
Yeah, dude. But if you love the original version of Season of the Witch by Donovan, because that is fucking classic, one of the best songs of the 60s, Renaissance Vanilla Fudge not only proves on Renaissance that they had the capacity to write great original material, but I'd say they even do themselves even better on the covers game with their cover of Season of the Witch, proving that not only they can do a great cover, but they can transform it and make it their own piece. Something that stands alone in the 60s rock canon. And I just love the album. It's so endearing to me. Well, you heard it for the first time recently. I played my record for you. What were your impressions?
Not
a big fan?
No, I'm having a hard time recalling a whole lot.
That's fair. One listen from like 4 months ago is hard to speak.
Yeah, I have it on my list to listen to if we ever want to revisit it.
Yes. It's very rare that I get to introduce an album to this guy. I think the only two I have on the books is Renaissance by Vanilla Fudge and Lovin', Laughin', Cryin', Smilin' by Lobby Sifri.
Lobby Sifri, Labia Sniffer, we love him.
Oh, the Labia Sniffer, except he wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, masterpiece. Not prog, but masterful album. It's not prog at all. We're just bringing it up.
He's not prog. Lobby Sifri, one of my favorite gay men.
I'm not even sure if I've been saying his name right this whole time. But nobody knows who the hell he is, so nobody's going to call me out.
Labby Snifri, one of the best.
Indeed. Sick. The more prog, the better.
Yes. All right. Next section, we're getting into some big names. The big hitters of the 60s that were, although popular, were still a huge influence on the genre from sort of more of the psychedelic rock section of the decade. who should we start with? The Doors?
Let's start with Jimbo. Yeah.
Let's start with Jimbo. Yeah. So The Doors, iconic. Need no introduction. I will always say it, the first rock star.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
sorry, Elvis.
Quintessential rock frontman, if you ask me.
Yeah, because you can shake your hips to the side of the stage, Elvis, because Jimbo's going to come out here and put his finger through the fly of his pants and make everyone think he flashed his dick on stage. That's rock and roll.
That's
baby.
lit.
That's fucking lit.
He's gonna say higher on the Ed Sullivan show.
Yeah.
And look right at the camera when he fucking says it. That's what he does.
Yeah.
It's like, higher.
Well, that's actually in the Doors movie where that is. If you watch the performance...
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I've only seen the Doors movie one time. I'm surprised I remember.
Dude, okay, I love the Doors movie. It's such an entertaining watch, but it is disgusting of how much misinformation on that band is spread. It's such a great story. It's an entertaining ass movie, but if you do not use that as a basis for any information about the band,
honestly, we're talking about the most pseudo-intellectual film director of all time. Oliver Stone, just saying.
Yeah.
He's like
he's like the OG Michael Bay, but like of dramas.
Yeah,
not good. But the thing about the Ed Sullivan thing was the legend and the myth has become like, it was his saying fuck you to the man by saying higher on live television. But in reality, in interviews, when they asked him about it, he was just really nervous. And he forgot that he was supposed to replace the lyric. And he just had the original lyric burnt in his brain. So it just came out. So, like, it wasn't even intentional. Because if you watch the actual Ed Sullivan performance, he is, like, so nervous looking. This is 1967, so his charisma, his stage presence wasn't fully formed yet.
He wasn't a cult leader yet.
No, he wasn't the cult leader yet. So he just, like, nervously forgot to replace the lyric. But it became rock history, you sitting here.
See? I was misinformed.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to do a whole video fucking getting the record straight about Jim Morrison, okay?
Yeah, I think every time you debunk a myth about the Doors, you should shoot a hole in an Oliver Stone poster.
Oh yes, that'd be amazing. But anyways, we digress.
I learned something today.
Yay! So the main thing I want to focus on with the Doors is their debut album, because it came out in 1967, but it was early 1967.
Early, yeah.
It came out in like February of 1967. And while there's a lot of like great blues rock, awesome keyboard playing from the boy Ray Manzarek, this album touches into a lot more experimental corners than bands were doing at the time. You got to think this is pre-Sgt. Pepper, this is pre-Velvet Underground debut, and for them to have The End on this album is just insane.
Very insane. And they were also quite jazzy when they wanted to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But with songs like The End and When the Music's Over, songs that are crossing over the 10-minute mark, which would become, a cornerstone of a lot of prog bands. But just the weird experimental structure and nature of this song. It's not even really a song. It's like a rambling with music going on in the background. But like Jim Morrison's charisma and his ability to capture the listener as a proper frontman, I think it's best displayed on the first album with The End.
Yeah, and for the big prog bands, frontmen and theatrics were a big deal. So, I mean, he influenced all rock singers. He set the foundation for what we know as a rock singer today.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have to give credit to the early rock and roll pioneers, but for what rock has morphed into and has been for the last 50, 60 years, this is the era that really feels timeless still. And this Doors debut, nobody sounds like the Doors.
No.
People try to imitate Jim Morrison all the time, but they had such a unique aesthetic for their playing. I mean, the lack of a bass player,
Yeah.
Which made the organs an even more crucial part of their sound. For me, I love Jim Morrison, but I can't listen to the Doors without him in it, and I cannot listen to the Doors without Ray Manzarek in it either. I think I give him more credit for his influence on prog than I might even Jim Morrison.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, Light My Fire with the long organ solo and the long guitar solo in that piece, being one of their breakout hits as a 7-minute long song. I mean,
they cut it for a radio single, but I'll tell you, 95% of the time I'd ever hear it on the radio was uncut.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's amazing. To get a song on the radio that's longer than 4 minutes is insane. And to touch for a moment on When the Music's Over, again, I'd say it's a little more musical than the end, definitely. There's great fucking guitar parts. Robbie Krieger's guitar solo, it sounds like his guitar is just on fire. He almost sounds like he's doing a kind of Fripp thing, the way he's holding the highs in his solo. It sounds like it's going to blow your speakers out. But I think there's even more charisma from Jim Morrison on this. My favorite line, probably my favorite Jim Morrison line ever, is cancel my subscription to the resurrection. Send my credentials to the house of detention. I got friends inside. Awesome. Just fucking awesome, dude. If he's not the coolest motherfucker to ever live, coolest white boy to ever live anyways, it's fucking Jim Morrison, man.
He was pretty cool. His lyrics sometimes were a bit pseudo-intellectual.
All right. All right. Listen here, bud. Everybody talks about Jim Morrison's poetry is not good and it's amateur, it's pseudo-intellectual, all this and that, okay? And sure, I'll give you that. I've read some of his poetry. It's just okay. It's fine. But in the context of rock songs, as rock lyrics,
oh yeah, they're amazing.
Amazing. If you're picking apart the lyrics and like trying to bring some kind of meaning from them, you're totally missing the point.
I love his lyrics. I will go on record saying.
Yeah.
I was just debating the fact that maybe his lyrics make him not as cool as Nick Cave or something.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Because he's dark and disturbed, which is always cool, right? I don't know why people don't find me cool. I mean, I'm dark and disturbed, but you want dark and disturbed? I got it.
I swear I'm fun at parties.
But I think he is one of the coolest though still.
Yeah.
I was just playing around mostly. I love the man. I think he's a rock god.
Yeah.
And I hate that it seems like the Doors are not. Maybe this is why it came to mind, why I was trying to argue that he wasn't as cool as maybe you thought he was. Because I'm seeing newer generations don't seem to hold the Doors in as high regard as they used to be. Yeah. And that's a shame to me because they were so fucking singular and they were dark and they were edgy and they were emotional and they were experimental at times. And their discography is such a joy to listen through. And it's bookended on their 2 best records, basically, which is insane. I mean, the bookends of their discography, insane. First song, last song, Break On Through, Riders on the Storm. How do you fucking start and end that strong? I mean, it's such a great run. But yeah, I think maybe some people are starting to think the Doors are nerdy, and they're not.
I don't understand.
I mean,
it's true, but I don't understand.
Or do they picture Ray Manzarek's face when they think of the Doors now? Because he looks like a nerd.
He does. But fucking 4 eyes. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in pease. I love you.
Rest in peace, Ray Manzarek. I love you.
But Jim Morrison, man, what a handsome fucking guy.
Woo!
At the beginning, especially before he looked like a cult leader. But,
I love Fat Jim Morrison.
Oh, I love him too. But if I would sleep with one of them, if I had to pick, I mean, I'd sleep with both of them.
Who's a better cuddler?
Fat Jim Morrison.
Fat Jim Morrison. All right.
Yeah.
That beard, okay, keeping you warm on your neck.
And it would be nice to be next to someone that also has a beer gut.
Yeah. Loves whiskey.
Yeah. Exactly. Show me the way to the next little girl, though. That's a cover.
It's a cover. It's a cover.
Jimbo gets the pass.
All right.
This is a stupid band.
This is a stupid band. Only new stoners and fake hippies like this band.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're talking about Pink Floyd.
Yeah, listen to some Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Be a real fucking hippie.
Yeah, be a real hippie, man. Listen to some Neil Young, for fuck's sake. But Pink Floyd, a household name. No introduction is needed with Pink Floyd because they're a band that was cool at the time and they persist to be cool as fuck to this day because, I mean, generation after generation, people are hearing, to this day, Dark Side of the Moon for the first time, and a whole door is blown up, open for people. Now, weirdly, with us talking about Pink Floyd in this Prog video, Prog podcast, both of us never really think about Pink Floyd when it comes to the progressive rock talk.
No, as popular as they are truly a very singular sounding band. And there's a lethargicness or a lethargy to some of Pink Floyd's stuff that even when they write long songs, they still feel, maybe it's just because I'm used to hearing them on the radio. I don't know. They just kind of feel like their own thing, but they seem more of like a gateway band into prog to me. Like, I always forget to put them up there.
Yeah, I would. I mean, Animals is like the most proggy, but I'd say by and large, I think of them more as like a psychedelic rock band.
Yeah.
But with the early Floyd records, you cannot deny the influence that they had on progressive music in general, because so many people heard the first Floyd record and took that inspiration in so many different directions. The debut Floyd record to come out in 1967, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, headed by the late Syd Barrett, the founder of Pink Floyd. This is often talked about as a huge milestone in psychedelic rock, and for good reason, because they were like the badass. If the Beatles is like your Eastern philosophy, transcendental kind of acid trip, Pink Floyd is that dark, barreling through a black hole kind of acid trip.
So it's like going, in space.
Yeah, very, very spacey, very, I don't know, like, at one point, Stanley Kubrick was considering having Pink Floyd do the soundtrack for 2001: A Space Odyssey.
That makes a lot of sense.
It makes a ton of sense. And the songs I'd like to point out with that debut Floyd record is Astronomy Domine and Interstellar Overdrive.
Yeah, those are two songs that really make this record a lot more classic than it might otherwise be.
Yeah, I've been on record in the past saying I'm not a big fan of like the folkier cuts on this. They're a bit silly and a bit goofy, very, very painfully English.
Yeah, but Canterbury, I guarantee these bands loved this fucking record.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's just no way. The humor, it's all there.
Oh, absolutely.
The British whimsy. It's funny that we talk about Pink Floyd in that way because they became really a humorless band in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really only present on the debut, so you can give it credit for that at least. But those two touchstone tracks, I mean, the heavy distorted guitar, those driving riffs. I mean, you really feel like when you're riding on that main riff of Interstellar Overdrive, like you're sitting cowboy style on a rocket, just being shot into the fucking stars. And the song like loses itself through the midsection and just becomes this like cerebral, fucking mind-melting sort of experience where you feel like you're floating outside of your own body.
Yeah, it's some krautrock shit.
Very, very much so. It's so far out, and those songs really reach past just being like your of the 60s psychedelic tracks and speak of so much to come with heavy psych, with what psych rock would become in the 70s, and a lot of flavors of prog rock there, with Interstellar Overdrive being like a 9-minute long song, being very jammy, very loose, very improv heavy. There's no way I can't imagine that like a Crimso or a Yes didn't hear that debut Floyd album.
They definitely heard it.
I'm sure they did. And then moving from there, their second album, much less talked about. I would even
better album.
I would say better album and seriously underrated.
Seriously, one of the
Secrets.
best album covers of all time too.
You know that was taken from a comic book?
Which one?
I don't know, but you can, if you look inside like those bubbles and stuff, you can see like superheroes' faces.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's very hard to pick out, but yeah, it's from a comic book, weirdly. But Saucer Full of Secrets, it was the first record with David Gilmour on it. The only record that had songs with contributions from all 5 band members. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun being one of those. And, well, a lot of this record definitely falls into a space rock sort of pocket. The title track alone is just insane, especially for 1968.
Yeah, and space rock back then was very prog centric. You know, they went a lot better together back then. They shared more DNA than they do now, maybe.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, space rock wouldn't become more separated until the 70s with like your Hawkwinds. But Pink Floyd, they just rode the line in many different ways in many genres in their early days, and the sophomore Pink Floyd is just it's amazing. It's just incredible. I mean, I wish I had more in depth to talk about, but
yeah, I haven't listened to it for quite a while, but it's underrated album. I always thought it was one of their better records.
Top 5 Floyd record.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
my opinion. Yeah.
But way better than The Wall.
Shut up. Shut up.
White boy funk grew my ass.
Oh, Jesus. Always got to throw that in there somewhere.
I do. I always got to throw that in Hotel California in there. Those people should have never touched those genres.
Hey, you can shit on Hotel California all day. I don't give a shit.
On a dark desert highway. Hendrix, Electric Ladyland. I'm going to focus on Electric Ladyland because it's, it's a double record, and it's a sprawling record. It's got lots of improvisational jamming throughout it. I don't think it's particularly proggy, but the way that he tackles his instrument is the most interesting to me. This guy made his guitar work for him. It's insane. And that technological aspect of music is big for prog. I mean, all you have to do is look at an ELP live performance and see Keith Emerson's fucking setup. I mean, they were trying so many new sounds. They were just... And that's why there was potentially a talk in collaboration with Hendrix and ELP. But what he did for his instrument and how he just brought sounds out of it that nobody else did would become, again, such a huge part of prog. And especially with keyboards in prog. God, how many different keyboard tones do classic prog songs have? And just historically, like we know that a lot of prog bands, every guitar player looked up to him.
Yeah.
And for him to do the sprawling epic record with playing that adequate, obviously, without being super clean about it, which I like, it was distorted, it was noisy. I mean, how do you get to Schizoid Man without that?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you get to almost anything without that? That's why you have to talk about Hendrix. If this was a punk podcast, we talk about Hendrix. If this was a psychedelic podcast, obviously we'd talk about Hendrix. If this was a soul podcast, we would talk about Jimi fucking Hendrix.
If this was a metal podcast,
we would talk about Jimi Hendrix. His influence just goes so far. I mean, psychedelic soul, you wouldn't have without him. I mean, it was brewing, and they took a lot of influence, but it's like, man, this guy's DNA is in so many different genres that it almost made me not want to talk about him, because it's so fucking obvious that every single rock subgenre has something to thank this man for, a lot to thank this man for.
He's absolutely a household name where it's almost like nearly cliche to bring him up like the Beatles, but he's one of those quintessential artists like a Miles Davis, where all the ink that's been spilled and all the praise that's been heaped, I feel like you can never heap enough praise.
No, and you also want to talk about one of the coolest motherfuckers of all time.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah. Brother. One other thing I would add to about Electric Ladyland playing a part in this is it was really the first and only Hendrix Experience record where he was really utilizing the studio as an instrument as well. I mean, the way that he pans a lot of the songs, a lot of the, especially like Crosstown Traffic, the way it's moving from channel to channel. It was really a touchstone for just what you could do in the studio to expand on your ideas in a rock context.
And, you know, these are, when we talk about these bands and artists too, it's amazing how fully formed they seemed from the fucking get-go.
Yeah.
You know, and I know this is different than our streaming age where people can put out a really shitty debut record and it's a lot easier to get distribution, it's a lot easier to hear it. But, I mean, this is a young guy. I mean, it's just crazy.
I mean, it might sound kind of snobby to say, but guys like Hendrix and why he's still talked about, why he's still loved, it kind of separates the difference between musicians who will remain stuck in their time and always be tied to the 60s or whatever, and the artists who were visionaries, the artists who came out the gate with something new, something fresh to offer to the music landscape, and just burned themselves into history, but still are burning themselves into the minds of people who are getting exposed to Jimi Hendrix in the year of our Lord 2026.
You can go to Walmart and get a Jimi Hendrix shirt.
Yeah, it's incredible.
He's one of those fucking titans. I mean, he's the fucking coolest. He's Jimi fucking Hendrix.
Yeah, and he's one of, if not the most wondering what he would have gone on to do if he hadn't had such an untimely death. The man was 27, and everything he'd already accomplished by that time is just breathtaking.
And you really felt like he was ready to turn a new leaf, and do something, just something. I whether it was, you know, the ELP potential thing, or just playing with Miles. You know, Miles, you know, John McLaughlin feels a lot like the Jimi Hendrix of jazz.
Yeah.
But it's just so insane that this guy, you know, everybody was just in awe of this man. And it doesn't have any... You could just look at him. You can look at this guy and you know.
Iconic.
You know, even if you never knew his music, if you saw a picture of this man, you just know. You know he's the real fucking deal. He's Jimi fucking Hendrix.
Jimi fucking Hendrix, man. All right, folks, that's going to do it here for the first episode of the Progcast. When we come back to you next time, we're going to be touching on Frank Zappa, Captain Beefheart, and the big hitters of 1969, the year when the wave would crest and the genre that we know as prog rock would come into full form, mainly by a little band known as King Crimson. Rob, anything to leave us off on this first episode?
Yeah, I think a lot of these records are great and they should be listened to, of course, but you know, we're really just sort of paying our respects right now. Believe me, once we get to 1970, this shit is gonna go off.
Yeah. Off
big time. Records you may know that you never listened to or you have, and records by bands you've probably never even heard of. You may not even be able to say the name correctly for some of them. But this genre, we got to pay the respects first. And that's what we're doing now. But holy shit, if you're interested, once we hit 1970, this shit's going to get real.
It's popping off.
It pops off in ways you most genres dream of.
Yeah. We love the roots. We love digging down to the roots of music, knowing where shit comes from. You know, knowing the origins of any genre can help you appreciate where it goes and what it grows into.
Yeah, but most of the best prog records take place in the first half of the 70s.
70 to 74, brother.
Yep.
We're going to have to go year by year.
And that's what we're going to do. We didn't think we were at first, but holy shit, you have to.
You have to.
We
have no choice, and we still won't get to everything.
No, we won't.
Does that sound exciting? Is everybody hard and or wet? Just the thought of that? I hope you are.
I spilled water on myself.
I'm physically wet. Somebody
Literally.
Driving that spills their Coke. Well, I'm wet, but not because I want to be.
Yeah. Ugh.
So that'll do it for the first episode of the Progcast, everybody. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. And we'll hopefully hear you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.